The morning sun streamed through the towering windows of Hawthorne Estate, casting golden rays across the polished mahogany desk where Elliot Hawthorne sat, his sharp blue eyes scanning a ledger. At 40, the white American tycoon was a formidable figure in Willow Creek, his wealth built on a ruthless reputation for seizing assets from those who couldn't pay their debts. His office, adorned with sleek furniture and rare art, trophies from foreclosed properties, reflected his unyielding control. Today, his focus was on the Brooks family farm, a sprawling black-owned property teetering on the edge of foreclosure due to a crippling loan. Elliot's lips curved into a faint, calculating smile. The farm's fertile land could fetch millions, and he relished the moment when desperation would force its owners to yield. "Mr. Hawthorne," his secretary's voice crackled through the intercom. "Marcus Brooks is here to see you." Elliot leaned back in his leather chair, adjusting his tailored navy suit. He'd been expecting this visit. The Brooks family had dodged his demands for months, their missed payments piling up like kindling ready to ignite. "Send him in," he replied, his tone smooth but edged with anticipation. The heavy oak door swung open, and Marcus Brooks entered, his weathered face etched with exhaustion. His work-worn hands, calloused from years of tending the farm, clutched a faded cap. Behind him stood a young woman Elliot didn't recognize. Her presence was striking, tall, with rich brown skin and fierce, unyielding eyes that locked onto his without a hint of fear. Her dark curls were pulled back neatly, and her simple blazer and skirt spoke of professionalism, not desperation. Marcus cleared his throat, his voice trembling. "Mr. Hawthorne, please, we need more time. That farm's been in our family for 3 generations. It's all we've got." Elliot steepled his fingers, his gaze shifting between father and daughter. "Mr. Brooks, you've had 6 months. Unless you've got collateral worth $300,000, I'll take possession of the farm by next Friday." His words were deliberate, each one a hammer striking a nail. Marcus's shoulders slumped, but the young woman stepped forward, her posture unwavering. "I'm Lila Brooks," she said, her voice steady and clear, "and I have a proposition for you." Marcus's eyes widened in panic. "Lila, no," he began, but she raised a hand gently, silencing him. "Daddy, let me handle this." She turned to Elliot. "I'll work for you to pay off the debt. I have a business administration degree from Howard University. I can be your assistant, manage your accounts, streamline your operations, whatever you need. In 1 year of my work, the debt is cleared." Elliot raised an eyebrow, intrigued. He leaned forward, studying her. At 24, she carried herself with a rare blend of poise and defiance, her dark eyes challenging him to underestimate her. Most debtors who entered his office begged or groveled, their pride crumbling under the weight of his power. Lila Brooks was different. She stood tall, her dignity a shield against his influence. "And why should I accept this?" he asked, his voice low, testing her resolve. "The farm's worth more than your skills, Ms. Brooks." Lila didn't flinch. "Because you know the farm's value is tied up in legal battles and appraisals. My work is immediate, tangible. I can save you time and make you money. And because I'll fight tooth and nail to keep my family's legacy." Her words hung in the air, bold and unapologetic. Marcus shifted uncomfortably, but Lila's gaze never wavered. Elliot stood, circling his desk slowly, his polished shoes clicking against the hardwood floor. The power dynamic thrilled him, yet something in Lila's resolve unsettled him. A spark he couldn't quite name. "You're offering yourself as collateral," he said, his tone almost mocking. "How desperate you must be." "I'm not offering myself," Lila snapped, her voice sharp but controlled. "I'm offering my skills, my time, my work. There's a difference, Mr. Hawthorne, and you do well to understand it. Her words cut through the room, and for a moment, Elliot paused, caught off guard by her audacity. No one spoke to him like that. Not clients, competitors, or his staff. A slow smile spread across his face, not cold but curious. Very well, he said finally. 1 year as my assistant, here at the estate. You'll work my hours, follow my rules. If you quit before the debt's paid, the farm is mine. But I'll honor your terms. You keep your apartment in town, and I'll treat you with respect. Do we have a deal? Lila nodded, her jaw tight. We do. Marcus protested softly. Lila, you don't have to. But she squeezed his arm, her eyes softening. It's okay, Daddy. I've got this. Elliot extended his hand, and Lila shook it firmly, her grip as resolute as her words. As they left, Elliot watched them through the window, Marcus's old pickup truck rattling down the drive. He'd taken countless properties, broken countless spirits, but this was different. Lila Brooks wasn't hurt. She was a fighter, which intrigued him more than he cared to admit. That evening, Lila returned to the Brooks family farm, its weathered barn and sunflower-dotted fields glowing under the twilight. Inside the cozy kitchen, her younger siblings, Maya, 16, and Tommy, 18, waited anxiously. Maya, her braids swinging as she paced, burst out, Lila, he's heartless. Everyone says Hawthorne's a shark. What if he traps you? Tommy, quieter but no less worried, added, You're giving up a year for us. What if it's not enough? Lila hugged them, her voice steady despite the knot in her chest. Mama loved this farm. She worked in these fields and told us stories under that old oak. I'm not letting Hawthorne take it. I'll work for him, keep my head high, and we'll save our home. Nothing changes, okay? Maya's eyes glistened, but she nodded. Tommy squeezed her hand, his graduation looming like a shadow. You're tougher than he is, Lila, he said. Her confidence wavered as Lila lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling. Elliot Hawthorne was a man who thrived on control, and his icy demeanor was a fortress. Yet she'd seen a flicker in his eyes today. Surprise, maybe even respect. It wasn't much, but it was enough to fuel her resolve. I won't let him break me, she whispered. This is for Mama, for Daddy, for Maya and Tommy. I'll save our farm, no matter what. The next morning, Lila dressed carefully, professionally, and understatedly, a shield against Hawthorne's wealth. The town's whispers followed as she drove to the estate. Hawthorne's got another victim. She gripped the steering wheel tightly. She wasn't a victim. She was Lila Brooks, and she was here to fight for her family's legacy. Little did she know, her arrival at Hawthorne Estate would spark a chain of events that would unravel secrets, challenge hearts, and change everything. For her, for Elliot, and the town of Willow Creek. Lila Brooks stepped into the grand foyer of Hawthorne Estate, her heels echoing against the marble floor. The opulence, chandeliers gleaming, walls lined with stern portraits, felt like a challenge, daring her to falter. She straightened her blazer, her resolve as firm as the contract she'd signed with Elliot Hawthorne. Her first week as his assistant began today, and she was ready to prove her worth, not just to save her family's farm, but to show this tycoon she wasn't one of his acquisitions. Elliot's office door loomed ahead, and she knocked sharply. Enter, came his crisp voice. Inside, he sat at his mahogany desk, his navy suit impeccable, his expression unreadable. A stack of dusty files awaited her, their edges frayed from decades of neglect. Ms. Brooks, he said, not looking up, reorganize these by client name, cross-reference with current accounts, and draft a summary report. By noon. His tone was clipped, a test wrapped in a command. Lila nodded, unfazed. Understood, Mr. Hawthorne. She hauled the files to her desk in the adjacent office, a smaller space with a single window overlooking the estate's manicured lawns. The task was daunting. Hundreds of handwritten documents, others typed on faded paper. But she dove in, her business training kicking in. As she sorted, she sensed Elliot watching from his doorway, his gaze a silent pressure. She ignored it, focusing on the numbers and names, her pen moving swiftly. By 11, she'd organized the files and drafted a report, her fingers stained with ink. She reviewed it twice, ensuring every figure was precise. When she placed it on Elliot's desk, he glanced up, his blue eyes narrowing. "This is amateur," he snapped, tossing the report back. "The projections are off. Redo it." His words stung, but Lila caught a flicker of something in his expression, perhaps curiosity testing her limits. She took a deep breath, her voice steady. "With respect, Mr. Hawthorne, the projections are accurate. Check page 5, line 12. Your accountant's revenue estimate for Q3 is inflated by $50,000. I corrected it based on the raw data." She slid the report back, her gaze meeting his without flinching. Elliot's jaw tightened, but he flipped to the page, fingers pausing over her correction. Surprise broke through his guarded facade for a moment, though he quickly masked it. "Fine," he muttered, "but the font's too small. Fix it." Lila returned to her desk, allowing herself a small smile. One victory, however minor, was hers. The day continued with more tasks, scheduling meetings, analyzing contracts, even fetching coffee, which she suspected was another test. Each demand was more complex, designed to overwhelm, yet Lila tackled them methodically, her pride a shield against his scrutiny. She wasn't here to break, she was here to endure. As she prepared to leave, Lila overheard voices from Elliot's office, the door slightly ajar that evening. "She's a resource, Victor," Elliot said, his tone cool. "Her skills outweigh the farm's immediate value." Victor Crane, his lawyer, laughed derisively. "A resource? She's a liability, Hawthorne. Take the farm and move on." Lila's blood boiled. "A resource?" She marched in without knocking, her voice sharp. "I'm not your property, Mr. Hawthorne, nor a liability. I'm here to work, to pay a debt with my skills. If you can't see the difference, maybe this deal was a mistake." Elliot's eyes widened, a rare crack in his composure. Victor smirked, leaning against the desk. Bold words for someone whose family's on the ropes. Lila turned to him, her stare icy. "And bold of you to assume you know my worth, Mr. Crane." She faced Elliot again. "I'll be here tomorrow, 8 o'clock a.m., sharp. But don't mistake my work for ownership." She left, her heart pounding, the weight of her words lingering. In his office, Elliot stood motionless, Victor's chuckle fading as he exited. Alone, Elliot sank into his chair, Lila's defiance replaying in his mind. Years ago, his fiancée, Claire, had used his trust to siphon funds, leaving him with a shattered heart and a mantra: trust no one. Richard Hawthorne's father had drilled that lesson deeper, teaching him that power was the only currency that mattered. Yet Lila's sharp, unafraid words stirred a memory of who he'd been before. Betrayal hardened him. He pushed the thought away, but it clung, persistent. Lila sat at the kitchen table at the Brooks family farm, the scent of her father's cornbread filling the air. Maya, her younger sister, braided her hair nervously. "Was he awful today?" she asked. Lila sighed. "He's trying to break me, Maya, piling on work like I'm his servant. But I won't let him." Tommy, her brother, looked up from his textbook, his graduation looming. "He's got no right to treat you like that. Why not walk away?" Lila squeezed his hand. "Because this farm is Mama's legacy. Every sunflower and story she told us is worth fighting for. I'll outlast him." Maya's eyes softened. "You're tougher than he is, Lila. But be careful. People say he's got a heart of stone." Lila smiled faintly. "Maybe. But I saw something today. A crack in that stone. He's not as untouchable as he thinks." Her siblings nodded, their trust in her unwavering, though worry lingered in their glances. That night, in the silence of his mansion, Elliot stood by a window, the town's lights flickering below. The vast and empty estate echoed with memories of Claire's betrayal, her promises of love, her secret withdrawals. He'd built walls since then, each deal a brick, each seizure a reinforcement. Lila Brooks, though, was no Claire. She didn't beg or manipulate. She stood her ground, her dignity a mirror reflecting his isolation. He told himself the deal was pure business, but her words, "I'm not your property," gnawed at him. For the first time in years, Elliot wondered if power was all he wanted. Lila, lying in her childhood bedroom, stared at the ceiling, the farm's creaks a familiar lullaby. Today, she'd faced Elliot's tests and met his challenges with precision and pride. But his gaze, that fleeting surprise when she'd corrected him, unsettled her. Was it respect or just another game? She whispered, "You're here for the farm, Lila. For Daddy, Maya, Tommy. Don't let him get under your skin." Yet, as she drifted to sleep, she couldn't shake the feeling that this battle was only beginning, and the man she faced was more complex than the town's whispers suggested. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a soft glow through the tall windows of Hawthorne Estate. Lila Brooks sat at her desk, organizing the last of the day's reports, her fingers moving swiftly over the keyboard. Her second week as Elliot Hawthorne's assistant had been relentless. Endless spreadsheets, urgent calls, and tasks designed to test her endurance. Yet she thrived under pressure, and each completed assignment was a quiet triumph. The estate felt different tonight, though, its grandeur hollow, the silence broken only by the distant clack of keys from Elliot's office. Lila glanced at the clock, 7:30 p.m. Most staff had left hours ago, their hurried footsteps fading into the evening. She gathered her things, but curiosity tugged at her. Elliot was still working, his door ajar, a sliver of light spilling into the hall. She approached quietly, peering inside. He sat hunched over his desk, his suit jacket discarded, tie loosened, his face illuminated by the glow of his laptop. Papers were strewn around him, a half-empty coffee mug at his elbow. No one else was there. No friends, no family, just Elliot and his work. The sight stirred something in Lila, a pang of recognition. This mansion, for all its wealth, was a lonely place. She hesitated, then slipped a sticky note from her bag. In neat script, she wrote, "Numbers don't keep you warm, Mr. Hawthorne." She placed it on his doorframe, where he'd see it later, and left, her footsteps echoing in the empty foyer. Outside, the cool night air greeted her as she drove home to the Brooks family farm, the familiar silhouette of the barn grounding her. Maya was sketching at the table in the kitchen, her pencils scattered. "You're late," she said, looking up. "Was Hawthorne awful again?" Lila set her bag down, smiling faintly. "Not awful, just demanding. But I'm keeping up." She paused, thinking of Elliot's solitary figure. "He's alone, Maya. That big estate, all that money, and no one to share it with." Maya frowned, twirling a braid. "Sounds like his choice. Why feel sorry for him?" Lila didn't answer right away, pouring herself a glass of water. "I don't know. Maybe because I saw something tonight. Not the tycoon, but the man. He's not as cold as everyone thinks." Tommy emerged from the living room, his textbook under his arm. Cold or not, he's got you working late. You sure this deal's worth it? Lila met his gaze, her voice firm. It's worth it for the farm, for Mama's memory. I'm not backing down. Tommy nodded, but his worry lingered. Just don't let him change you, Lila. She hugged him, her resolve steady. He won't. I'm still me. The next morning, Lila arrived at the estate at 7:45 a.m., her usual punctuality a point of pride. A steaming cup of coffee sat on her desk, brewed exactly as she liked it, black with a hint of cinnamon. Her breath caught. Elliot. She glanced at his office, where he was already reviewing documents, his expression as guarded as ever. No acknowledgement, no explanation, just the coffee, its warmth a silent gesture. She sipped it, the flavor grounding her, and got to work, a quiet question forming. Was this his way of responding to her note? Elliot's thoughts were far from the contracts before him in his office. Lila's note, now tucked in his drawer, had kept him awake last night. Numbers don't keep you warm. Simple words, yet they'd pierced his defenses, reminding him of evenings spent alone, his only company the hum of his laptop. Years ago, he'd dreamed of a life with Claire, shared laughter, and a family. Her betrayal had crushed that dream, leaving him with his father's lesson: trust only power. But Lila's presence, strength, and unexpected empathy challenged that belief. He'd impulsively made the coffee, a small act he couldn't quite justify. Victor Crane strode into Elliot's office mid-morning, his slick smile grating. "You're keeping that Brooks girl longer than I expected," he said, leaning against the desk. "She's a liability, Hawthorne. Her family's farm is ripe for the taking. Why drag this out?" Elliot's jaw tightened, his voice cold. "She's an asset, Victor, not a liability. Her work's impeccable, and the farm's value is tied up in red tape. This deal makes sense." Victor raised an eyebrow, unconvinced. "You're getting soft." The old Elliot would have seized the land by now. Elliot stood, his height imposing. The old Elliot built this empire. The new one decides how to run it. "Drop it, Victor." The lawyer shrugged, leaving with a smirk, but his words lingered, echoing Elliot's doubts. Was he softening? Or was Lila exposing a truth he'd buried? He glanced at her through the glass partition, her head bent over a spreadsheet, her focus unwavering. She was a puzzle he wasn't sure he wanted to solve. At noon, Lila brought him a revised contract, her fingers brushing his as she handed it over. The touch was fleeting, but it sent a jolt through her, unbidden. "This is ready for your signature," she said, her tone professional. Elliot nodded, his eyes meeting hers for a moment longer than necessary. "Thank you, Ms. Brooks." She returned to her desk, her heart racing. The coffee. That looks. What did they mean? She pushed the thought aside, reminding herself, this was business, nothing more. As Lila drove home that evening, the coffee's warmth lingered in her mind. She'd meant her note as a challenge, a way to humanize the man behind the tycoon. His response, subtle but deliberate, suggested she'd struck a nerve. At the farm, Marcus was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables. "How's it going with Hawthorne?" he asked quietly. Lila hesitated, then said, "He's tough, but there's more to him. I caught him working late, all alone. It's like he's built a fortress around himself." Marcus frowned, his knife pausing. "Be careful, Lila. Men like him don't change easily." She nodded, but her thoughts drifted to the coffee, to the man who'd made it. Maybe her father was right, but perhaps that fortress had a crack. At the estate, Elliot stood by his window, the town's lights a distant glow. Victor's warning rang in his ears. She's a liability. He should end this deal. take the farm, and move on. But Lila's note, her quiet strength, held him back. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of his solitude, heavier than he'd expected. The late afternoon light filtered through the frosted glass of Lila Brooks's office at Hawthorne Estate, where she sat reviewing a client proposal. 3 weeks into her role as Elliot Hawthorne's assistant, she'd mastered his grueling pace, her desk a testament to her precision, files neatly stacked, reports annotated with her sharp insights. The coffee cup, now a daily ritual, sat steaming, its cinnamon scent a quiet bridge between her and Elliot. Today, though, a new challenge loomed. Elliot's voice crackled through the intercom. "Ms. Brooks, please, to my office." Lila smoothed her blazer and entered his office, where he stood by the window, his silhouette sharp against the Willow Creek skyline. "I need you to accompany me to the Willow Creek charity gala tonight," he said, his tone businesslike but strained. "My usual escort canceled, and the Pierce family, key clients, expect me to make an impression. It's overtime pay." He slid a sleek black credit card across his desk. "Buy a dress. Consider it a business expense." Lila's stomach tightened. The gala was a world of glitz she'd never navigated, a far cry from the farm's sunflower fields. "That's not in our agreement, Mr. Hawthorne," she said, her voice steady. Elliot turned, his blue eyes meeting hers, a rare hint of urgency breaking his usual composure. "I know, but I can't show up alone. The Pierces are particular." "You're capable, Ms. Brooks. I've seen it." His words, though pragmatic, carried a weight that felt almost like trust. She hesitated, then took the card. "Fine, but just this once." That afternoon, Lila ventured into a boutique in town, its racks lined with shimmering gowns. The saleswoman's skeptical glance made her bristle, but she chose an emerald dress, simple yet elegant, its deep green accentuating her presence without screaming for attention. Maya twirled into her room as she dressed that evening, eyes wide. "Lila, you look like a queen. But are you sure about this? Hawthorne's world isn't ours." Lila adjusted her earrings, her reflection resolute. "It's one night, Maya. I'm doing this for the farm, not for him." Elliot waited outside at the gala venue, a grand ballroom aglow with crystal chandeliers, his black tuxedo tailored to perfection. When Lila stepped from the car, he froze, his gaze lingering longer than it should have. "You look appropriate," he managed, his voice catching. Lila smirked, her confidence bolstered. "You don't clean up so bad yourself, Mr. Hawthorne." Inside, the crowd buzzed. Willow Creek's elite sipping champagne, their whispers trailing Lila and Elliot. Who's she? Hawthorne's new assistant? The scrutiny prickled, but Lila held her head high. Elliot guided her through the throng, his hand brushing her back, a formal and protective gesture. "Don't mind them," he murmured. "Most owe me money anyway." Lila laughed, the sound surprising them both. "Was that a joke, Mr. Hawthorne? I didn't know you had it in you." His lips twitched, a rare smile breaking through. As they mingled, Lila charmed the Pierce family with her wit, discussing market trends with a clarity that left Daniel Pierce nodding approvingly. Elliot watched, his expression softening, pride flickering in his eyes. The mood shifted when Victor Crane approached, his slick smile venomous. "Enjoying your new toy, Hawthorne?" he said, his voice loud enough to draw glances. Lila stepped forward before Elliot could respond. "The word you're looking for is colleague, Mr. Crane, but I understand big words can be tricky." The crowd tittered, and Victor's face reddened. Elliot's laugh, rich, genuine, rang out, startling everyone. "Time for a dance," he said, taking Lila's hand and leading her to the floor. The orchestra swelled and moved in sync, Elliot's hand firm at her waist, closer than necessary for a business arrangement. Lila's heart raced, the warmth of his touch unsettling. "Thank you," he said softly, his breath grazing her ear. "For what?" she asked, meeting his gaze. "For being here. For standing up to Victor. For—" He paused, vulnerability flickering. "For making me laugh. I haven't in years." Lila's breath caught, seeing not the tycoon, but the man beneath, his walls crumbling. The dance ended, but the moment lingered. Later, Elliot drove her home, taking the long route through the countryside, stars glittering above. "Are you lost, Mr. Hawthorne?" Lila teased, breaking the silence. He glanced at her, his expression unguarded. "No, I'm not ready for this evening to end." They stopped at a scenic overlook, the town's lights twinkling below. "Why me?" Lila asked suddenly. "You could have hired anyone for tonight." Elliot was quiet, then spoke, his voice low. "Because you're not afraid of me. Everyone else, clients, staff, they bow or scheme. You look me in the eye and call me out. That's why." Lila's chest tightened. "That made you want me here?" she pressed. "It made me want to know you," he admitted, his hand brushing hers in the dark. The touch was electric, but neither moved to close the distance, the weight of their deal hanging between them. At her apartment, Elliot walked her to the door. "Thank you for tonight," he said, his formality returning. Lila paused, then leaned in, kissing his cheek softly. "Thank you for the dance," she whispered, slipping inside. Elliot stood frozen, touching where her lips had been, a warmth spreading through him he hadn't felt in years. Back at the farm, Lila sat on her bed, the emerald dress draped over a chair. The night had shifted something. Business had blurred into something more profound, and it scared her. But as she drifted to sleep, Elliot's laugh, his confession, echoed, a spark she couldn't ignore. The morning after the Willow Creek Charity Gala, Lila Brooks arrived at Hawthorne Estate. The memory of Elliot Hawthorne's laugh and their quiet moment under the stars still lingering. Her desk held its usual coffee, the cinnamon scent now a silent pact between them. She wore her professional armor, a crisp blazer, her curls neatly pinned, but her heart felt unsteady, the gala's intimacy clashing with the reality of their deal. She was here to save her family's farm, not to fall for the man who held its fate. As she sorted emails, Elliot's voice called from his office. "Ms. Brooks, a moment." She entered, finding him at his desk, his expression a mix of resolve and something softer. "Last night was unexpected," he said, eyes searching hers. "But we keep this professional. Agreed?" Lila nodded, relief and regret tangling inside her. "Agreed, Mr. Hawthorne." Their deal, her work for the farm's debt, loomed large, a barrier neither could cross yet. She returned to her desk, focusing on contracts, but the air felt charged, every glance a reminder of what they'd left unsaid. Mid-morning, Victor Crane stormed into Elliot's office, his slick demeanor replaced by urgency. Lila, filing reports nearby, overheard his sharp tone. "You need to see this, Hawthorne." He slapped a folder onto the desk. Curious, Lila lingered, catching glimpses of photos through the glass partition. Elliot's face darkened as he flipped through them. "Ms. Brooks!" he barked, his voice colder than she'd heard in weeks. She stepped in, her stomach knotting at his glare. "Explain this," he demanded, thrusting a photo at her. It showed her outside Daniel Pierce's office, shaking his hand. Lila's breath caught. "That's from yesterday. I was asking Pierce about an internship for Tommy, my brother. He's graduating soon." Elliot's jaw tightened, his eyes flickering with doubt. You met my biggest rival and didn't tell me? Why? His tone cut, echoing the betrayal he'd felt years ago with Claire. Lila squared her shoulders, her voice steady. I didn't want to mix personal matters with our deal. It was a favor for Tommy, not a secret. She held his gaze, willing him to see her truth. Victor smirked from the corner. Convenient story, Ms. Brooks. Pierce has been sniffing around our clients. Coincidence? Lila's eyes flashed. I'm not your pawn, Mr. Crane. I'd never betray this company. Or my family. Elliot studied her, the photos in his hand, then set them down. Leave us, Victor, he said quietly. The lawyer exited, his smirk lingering. Alone, Elliot's voice softened, but pain remained. I want to trust you, Ms. Brooks. But secrets, they destroy. Lila nodded, her chest tight. I should have told you. I'm sorry. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. We keep this professional until the debt's clear. No more surprises. Lila agreed, her voice firm. No more surprises. Elliot slipped a note into her folder as she left his office. I'll wait. She found it later, her heart skipping. He trusted her, despite the doubt, but the note felt like a promise she wasn't ready to accept. That evening, Lila drove to the Brooks family farm, the sunflower fields glowing under the twilight. Inside, Tommy was pacing, his graduation cap on the table. Why'd you go to Pierce, Lila? Hawthorne's a shark. Why not ask him for help? His voice held frustration, his worry for her palpable. Lila sat beside him, her tone gentle but firm. I didn't want to owe Hawthorne more than I already do. This deal's about the farm, not favors. Pierce was a safe bet for you. Maya, sketching nearby, chimed in. But you're with him all day, Lila. What if he's playing you? Lila shook her head, the note burning in her pocket. He's not playing me. He's complicated. He could have taken the farm, but he's giving me a chance. That's something. Tommy frowned, unconvinced. Just don't let him pull you in too deep. Lila hugged them both, their concern grounding her. I'm in control, Tommy. For Mama, for us. I'll see this through. Elliot stood by his window at the estate, the town's lights a distant blur. Victor's photos had stirred old wounds. Claire's lies, her schemes with a rival to drain his accounts. He'd vowed never to trust again, yet Lila's honesty, her fierce defense, chipped at that vow. His note was reckless, a crack in his armor, but he couldn't take it back. Victor's warning echoed. She's a liability. Elliot pushed it aside, but doubt lingered, a shadow over the spark he'd felt at the gala. At home, Lila sat on the porch, the note in her hand. I'll wait. 2 words, heavy with meaning. She'd seen Elliot's hurt today, his struggle to trust, and it mirrored her caution. She was here because of the farm, her family, and her mother's legacy. But his laugh, his touch at the gala, his quiet note, they pulled at her, threatening to blur the lines. She tucked the note away, whispering to the night, "Stay focused, Lila. This is for the farm." Yet as she gazed at the stars, she couldn't shake the feeling that Victor's schemes were far from over, and the trust she and Elliot were building was about to face a greater test. The morning sun cast long shadows across the polished floors of Hawthorne Estate as Lila Brooks settled at her desk, the familiar coffee cup steaming with its hint of cinnamon. The previous day's events, Victor Crane's photos, Elliot Hawthorne's note promising to wait, hung heavy, a reminder of the fragile trust they were building. Lila pushed the thoughts aside, diving into her tasks with her usual precision, but a nagging unease lingered. Victor's smirk, his calculated jab about Daniel Pierce, felt like the opening move in a larger game. Mid-morning, Lila stumbled across a folder buried beneath a stack of ledgers while archiving old financial records in the estate's library. Its label read Brooks Loan, 1995, and her heart skipped. She opened it, her fingers tracing yellowed documents detailing her family's farm debt. The numbers didn't add up. Halfway through the loan's term, the interest rate had jumped from 5% to 12%, nearly doubling the principal. Her hands shook as she cross-checked the figures against Elliot's current accounts. The change was undocumented, and no approval was noted. This wasn't a mistake. It was deliberate. She marched to Elliot's office, the folder clutched tightly. "Mr. Hawthorne, we need to talk," she said, her voice steady despite her racing pulse. He looked up from his laptop, his expression guarded, but curious. "What is it, Ms. Brooks?" She laid the documents on his desk, pointing to the altered rate. "This loan, my family's loan. The interest was changed illegally. It's why we couldn't pay. Is this legal?" Elliot's brow furrowed as he studied the papers, his fingers tracing the numbers. "No," he said, his voice low, dangerous. "This isn't right. Victor handled these loans years ago." Lila's stomach twisted. "Victor? You mean he—" Before she could finish, the intercom buzzed. "Mr. Hawthorne, Sarah Klein from the Willow Creek Times is here," his secretary announced. "She insists it's urgent." Elliot and Lila exchanged a wary glance. "Send her in," he said, standing. Sarah, a sharp-dressed reporter with a notepad, strode in, her eyes gleaming with purpose. "Mr. Hawthorne, care to comment on allegations you're forcing Ms. Brooks to work off an illegal debt? Sources say you're exploiting her family's situation." Lila's blood ran cold, but she stepped forward, her voice firm. "That's not true. Mr. Hawthorne has been professional. Your sources are wrong." Sarah's smile was thin, unconvinced. "Photos from the gala suggest otherwise. The public's curious about your arrangement." Elliot moved in front of Lila, his tone icy. "No comment. Get out." Security escorted Sarah away, but her words lingered like a storm cloud. As the door closed, Elliot turned to Lila, his face taut. "Victor's behind this. He's stirring trouble." Lila nodded, her mind racing. "Then we need proof. If he tampered with our loan, he might have done it to others." Elliot's eyes met hers, a spark of determination igniting. "Let's find it." They spent the afternoon in the library, combing through dusty files. Lila's business acumen shone as she flagged discrepancies, altered rates, forged signatures, across multiple loans, all tied to Victor's tenure. Elliot's jaw clenched with each discovery. "He's been skimming profits for years," he muttered. "My father trusted him." As dusk fell, their shoulders brushed while sorting papers, the contact fleeting but electric. Lila ignored the flutter in her chest, focusing on a ledger from 2001. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a client's loan with a similar rate hike. "Victor's been playing dirty for decades." Elliot leaned closer, his voice softening. "You're brilliant, Ms. Brooks. I'd have missed this." She met his gaze, the compliment warming her despite her resolve to stay professional. "We're a team now, Mr. Hawthorne. We stop him together." That evening, Lila drove home to the Brooks family farm, the evidence folder tucked in her bag. The kitchen was warm, Marcus chopping onions for stew, and Maya and Tommy were at the table. "You look stressed," Marcus said, glancing up. Lila set the folder down, her voice tight. "I found something, Daddy. The loan. Victor changed the interest rate illegally. It's why we struggled." Marcus's knife paused, his eyes wide. That snake. Can you prove it? Lila nodded. We're working on it, but a reporter showed up today, accusing Elliot of exploiting me. Victor's pulling strings. Maya slammed her sketchbook shut. This is bad, Lila. If the town thinks you're his puppet, it'll hurt us all. Tommy leaned forward, his voice sharp. Why trust Hawthorne? He's part of that world. Lila's gaze softened. He's angry about this too, Tommy. He didn't know. He's helping me fight. Marcus reached for her hand. Be careful, baby girl. Men like Victor don't play fair. Lila hugged him, her resolve firm. Neither do I. Elliot stood in his office at the estate, the files spread before him. Victor's betrayal cut deeper than Claire's. It wasn't just personal, but a violation of his empire. He thought of Lila, her fierce intelligence, her unyielding spirit. Despite everything, she'd seen the fraud he'd missed, and her trust in him stirred something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose. But Victor's game escalated, and Elliot knew the reporter's visit was just the beginning. He poured another coffee, its cinnamon scent a reminder of Lila, and vowed to protect her, no matter the cost. Lila, sitting on the farm's porch, stared at the stars. The folder's secrets weighed heavily, but so did Elliot's note from yesterday. I'll wait. It was a promise, a tether to something beyond their deal. She whispered to the night, We'll beat Victor, Mama. For you, for the farm. But as she clutched the folder, she felt the storm brewing. Victor's schemes a shadow threatening to unravel everything she and Elliot were building. The dawn light filtered through the heavy curtains of Hawthorne Estate, casting a soft glow on Lila Brooks's desk, where her coffee sat, its cinnamon aroma a quiet constant, amidst the storm brewing within her. The discovery of Victor Crane's fraudulent loan manipulations had ignited a fire in her and Elliot Hawthorne, their shared purpose forging a bond stronger than the professional line they'd drawn. Yet the reporter's accusations, fueled by Victor, lingered like a shadow, threatening to taint their fight for the Brooks family farm. Lila's fingers flew across her keyboard, compiling evidence of Victor's schemes, when her phone buzzed with a text from Maya. Dad's acting weird. Come home tonight. Lila frowned, her gut twisting. Marcus had been shaken by the loan documents yesterday, his guilt over their financial struggles raw. She pushed the worry aside, focusing on a ledger showing Victor's tampering with another client's loan. Elliot appeared at her desk, his tie slightly askew, a rare sign of agitation. Ms. Brooks, we've got enough to confront Pierce, he said, his voice low. His company's loans were hit by Victor's fraud, too. If we show him, he might turn on Victor. Lila nodded, clutching the folder of evidence. Let's do it. But we need to be careful. Victor's desperate. They drove to Daniel Pierce's sleek office downtown, the city's skyline contrasting the farm's sunflowers. Inside, Pierce sat behind a glass desk, his smile smooth but guarded. Hawthorne, Ms. Brooks, to what do I owe this visit? Lila stepped forward, slamming the folder down. Victor Crane's been altering loan rates illegally. For our farm, your clients, everyone. He's been stealing from you. Pierce's eyes narrowed as he scanned the documents, his composure cracking. This is damning. Crane's been my lawyer for years. Elliot leaned in, his tone sharp. He's played us both, Pierce. Help us expose him, or your clients will know you missed this. Pierce hesitated, then nodded. I'll dig into my records. If this is true, Crane's finished. As they left, Lila felt a surge of hope, but it was cut short by her phone ringing. It was Maya, her voice trembling. Lila, Dad's drunk. He came home with cash. Lots of it. He won't say where it's from. Lila's heart sank. "I'm coming," she said, glancing at Elliot, who'd overheard. "Go," he urged, his eyes soft with concern. "I'll handle things here." But Lila shook her head. "No, we're a team. I'll check on Dad, but we'll finish this together." The kitchen was dim at the farm, and Marcus slumped at the table, an envelope of cash beside a half-empty whiskey bottle. Maya and Tommy stood nearby, their faces etched with worry. "Daddy, what's this?" Lila asked, her voice breaking. Marcus looked up, his eyes bloodshot. "I did it for you, baby girl," he slurred. "Pierce's man, Crane, gave me this to say Hawthorne forced you to work for him, to lie about the debt. I thought it'd free you." Lila's legs buckled, but she caught herself on the table. "You took a bribe?" she whispered, tears stinging. Tommy's voice was sharp. "How could you, Dad? Lila's fighting for us." Maya hugged Lila, her voice soft. "He's sorry, Lila. He's just scared." Lila knelt beside Marcus, her hand on his. "We're fixing this, Daddy. Together. But you need to tell the truth." Marcus nodded, sobbing. "I'm so sorry. I believed Crane's lies about Hawthorne." Lila's heart ached, but her resolve hardened. She called Elliot, who arrived within the hour, his presence steadying her. "Mr. Brooks," he said gently, "we've got evidence against Victor. Your mistake doesn't change that." Marcus looked at him, shame heavy. "You're better than I thought, Hawthorne." Back at the estate, Lila and Elliot worked late, cross-referencing more files. Their fingers brushed as they passed documents, a spark igniting despite the tension. "You didn't have to come to the farm," Lila said softly. Elliot met her gaze, his voice low. "You're not alone in this, Ms. Brooks. Not anymore." She nodded, the weight of Marcus's betrayal easing slightly in his support. But as they uncovered another forged loan, Lila's phone buzzed with a voicemail from an unknown number. Victor's voice slithered through. "You think you've won, Ms. Brooks? Ask your mother's story. The farm's secrets go deeper than you know." Lila's blood ran cold. She played the message for Elliot, whose face darkened. "He's bluffing," he said, but doubt flickered in his eyes. "Or, he's got something on your family." Lila clutched the folder, her mother's memory afire within her. "Then we find it first," she said, her voice fierce. At home, she sat with Maya and Tommy. The cash envelope was now evidence against Victor. "Mama fought for this farm," Lila told them. "Whatever Victor's hiding, we'll face it." Tommy squeezed her hand. "We're with you, Lila." Elliot stared at the files in his office, Victor's voicemail replaying. Lila's strength, her family's pain, stirred memories of his father's betrayals, deals that crushed others for profit. He'd followed that path once, but Lila was changing him, her fight for justice mirroring his conscience. As he poured a coffee for tomorrow, its cinnamon scent a promise. He knew Victor's threat was real, and the battle for the farm and Lila was far from over. The morning mist clung to the fields of the Brooks family farm as Lila Brooks stood on the porch, clutching the folder of evidence against Victor Crane. His chilling voicemail from the night before, "Ask your mother's story," echoed in her mind, a dark promise that the farm's secrets ran deeper than fraudulent loans. Inside Hawthorne Estate, the coffee on her desk, its cinnamon scent a quiet anchor, waited untouched. Lila's resolve was ironclad, but the weight of her father Marcus's betrayal and Victor's threat pressed heavily. She drove to the estate, determined to unearth the truth with Elliot Hawthorne. In his office, Elliot pored over the loan files they'd uncovered, his jaw set. The discovery of Victor's fraud had shaken him, not just as a betrayal of his business, but as a mirror to his father Richard's ruthless legacy. Lila's strength, her unwavering fight for her family, had cracked his guarded heart. "Ms. Brooks," he greeted as she entered, his voice softer than usual. "I've been digging into Victor's old contracts. There's more here. Something about your farm's original deed." Lila's pulse quickened. "Show me." They spread the documents across his desk, their hands brushing as they sorted papers. A 1985 deed caught Lila's eye, its fine print detailing a trust established by her great-grandfather, worth millions, meant for all Brooks' descendants. However, a later amendment, signed by Victor's father and Richard Hawthorne, redirected the funds to a shell company. "This trust," Lila whispered. "It's why our farm was never solvent. They stole it." Elliot's face darkened. "My father, he was part of this." Before they could process the revelation, Lila's phone rang. Victor's voice slurred through, heavy with whiskey. "You found the trust, didn't you? Your mother Naomi did too. She came to my father's cabin to confront him. Ask what happened next." The line went dead. Lila's hands shook, but Elliot's steady gaze grounded her. "We go to that cabin," he said. "Now." Lila nodded, fear and fury mingling. "For Mama." The drive to the Crane family's remote hunting cabin took an hour, the forest closing around them. Inside, the air was stale, the wooden table littered with old letters, and a single photo of Naomi, her fierce eyes mirroring Lila's. Victor sat slouched, a gun beside him, his face haggard. "You're persistent, Ms. Brooks," he rasped. "Naomi was, too. She found the trust and threatened to expose my father and Richard. So he silenced her." Lila's breath caught. "You mean he killed her?" Victor nodded, his eyes distant. "I was a kid, hiding in the loft. Saw her fall when he struck her, her head hitting the table. They buried her under the floorboards." Elliot stepped protectively in front of Lila, his voice low. "You're confessing to murder, Victor." Victor laughed bitterly. "Not me, my father. But I kept the secret and protected the money. Until you two started digging." Lila's voice trembled but held firm. "Where is she?" Victor pointed to the back room. "Check the floor." Lila knelt, her fingers prying up a loose board, tears falling as she saw a small, sealed box beneath. Inside were Naomi's remains, bones wrapped in cloth, and a stack of letters, each addressed to Lila, Maya, and Tommy for birthdays she'd never see. Lila clutched them, sobbing. "Mama fought for us." Elliot's hand rested on her shoulder, his own eyes glistening. She was a hero. Police arrived, alerted by Elliot's call en route, and took Victor into custody. As they catalogued the evidence, Lila read Naomi's letters, her mother's words a balm. "My darlings, never let anyone dim your light. This farm is your legacy." Back at the estate, Elliot faced a press swarm, his voice resolute. "My father stole the Brooks family trust. I'll restore it, every cent, and ensure justice for Naomi Brooks." Cameras flashed, but Lila stood beside him, her presence a silent vow. Lila sat at the farm that night with Marcus, Maya, and Tommy. The letters spread before them. Marcus wept, reading Naomi's words. "She tried to save us, and I failed her." Lila squeezed his hand. "You didn't know, Daddy. We'll honor her now." Maya's voice was soft. "She'd be proud of you, Lila." Tommy nodded, his earlier doubts gone. "You and Hawthorne, you're making this right." Lila's heart swelled, but Victor's confession haunted her. The trust was stolen, Naomi murdered, yet something felt unfinished. Elliot stared at the deed in his office, his father's signature a stain. Lila's courage, her grief, had shattered his belief in power as strength. He poured a coffee for tomorrow, cinnamon, a tribute to her, and vowed to rebuild, not just the trust, but himself. On the farm's porch, Lila held Naomi's last letter. "Love is your true wealth." She whispered, "We'll keep fighting, Mama." But Victor's slurred words lingered, hinting at a more profound secret that could unravel everything they'd uncovered. The early morning air was heavy with the scent of sunflowers as Lila Brooks stood on the porch of the Brooks family farm, clutching one of Naomi's letters found in the cabin. The revelation of her mother's murder and the stolen trust had shaken her, but the words in Naomi's elegant script, "Love is your true wealth," gave her strength. At Hawthorne Estate, the usual coffee cup waited on her desk, its cinnamon warmth a silent bond with Elliot Hawthorne, who had stood by her through Victor Crane's confession. Yet Victor's cryptic warning about deeper secrets gnawed at her, a shadow over their victory. Inside Elliot's office, the mood was tense. He'd spent the night accessing county records, his laptop screen glowing with old deeds and trust documents. "Ms. Brooks," he greeted, his voice strained, "I found something in the archives." Lila joined him, eyes scanning a file marked Brooks Trust, 1985. Among the papers was a sealed envelope, addressed in Naomi's handwriting, "To my dearest family." Lila's hands trembled as she opened it, Elliot's presence steady beside her. The letter began, "My darlings, if you're reading this, the truth is out, but there's more you must know." Naomi's words revealed a bombshell. She and Richard Hawthorne, Elliot's father, were half-siblings, born to the same mother. "My mother had a relationship with Richard's father before marrying mine," she wrote. "We learned the truth months before the trust was stolen. I thought it would make Richard help us. Instead, he buried it to protect his name." Lila's voice broke as she read aloud, her eyes meeting Elliot's. "Half-cousins," she whispered. "Does this change us?" Elliot sat heavily, his face pale. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice raw. "But we need the truth. All of it." Lila called Maya and Tommy, who arrived at the estate, and their concern was palpable. Together, they dug through legal records, Maya's sharp eyes catching a key detail. Naomi's mother was married to Marcus's father at Naomi's birth, making him her legal father under 1985 law. "There's no legal tie," Maya said, relief flooding her voice. Tommy nodded, squeezing Lila's shoulder. "You're free to choose, Lila." But the truth wasn't safe yet. Victor, out on bail, leaked Naomi's letter to the press, igniting a firestorm. By noon, reporters swarmed the estate's gates, headlines screaming, "Hawthorne Brooks scandal, secret family ties." Lila's stomach churned as she overheard a TV report. Is Elliot Hawthorne exploiting his cousin? Elliot's hand found hers, his grip firm. "We'll face this together," he said. Lila nodded, her resolve hardening. "I won't let Victor's lies win." She stepped onto the estate's front steps, facing the cameras, Elliot at her side. "I'm Lila Brooks," she declared, her voice clear and unwavering. "The rumors about a family tie are false. Legal records prove Naomi Brooks's mother was married to my father when Naomi was born. There's no blood connection between me and Mr. Hawthorne. We're fighting for justice, for my mother, murdered for uncovering a stolen trust. Victor Crane leaked lies to hurt us, but we stand together." Her fierce and honest words silenced the crowd, reporters scrambling to verify her claims. Back inside, Elliot pulled her aside, his eyes warm with admiration. "You were incredible out there." Lila smiled faintly, her heart still racing. "I had to protect us, our family, our truth." Maya hugged her tightly. "Mama would have been proud, Lila." Tommy, once skeptical, nodded at Elliot. "You're not what I thought, Hawthorne." The public's tide turned, Social media buzzing with support. Lila Brooks shuts down scandal. But Victor wasn't done. A text arrived on Elliot's phone. Check your email. The press gets more in 1 hour unless you pay $5 million to Elliot's face hardened as he opened the email. A copy of Naomi's letter, twisted to imply coercion. He's desperate, Lila said, her voice steady. We beat him with the truth. They called Elliot's lawyer, who confirmed the marriage records nullified any scandal. The press will eat Victor alive for this, the lawyer said. Lila sat with Maya and Tommy, rereading Naomi's letter. She wrote about love, Lila said softly. That's what we're fighting for. Marcus joined them at the farm that night, his eyes red from reading Naomi's words. I should have believed her, he said, voice breaking. Lila hugged him. We're making it right, Daddy. While working late at the estate, Elliot stared at the trust documents and his father's betrayal, a wound reopened. Lila's courage, her stand against the press, had shown him what strength truly meant. Not power, but truth. He poured her coffee for tomorrow, its cinnamon a vow, knowing Victor's next move could unravel everything. On the porch, Lila gazed at the stars, Naomi's letter in her lap. The scandal was fading, but Victor's threat loomed. She whispered, We're close, Mama. We'll finish what you started. The farm's sunflowers swayed, as if nodding, but a chill ran through her. Victor's desperation was a ticking bomb, and the truth they'd fought for was about to face its final test. The morning sun broke through the clouds, casting a golden glow over the Brooks family farm as Lila Brooks stood in the kitchen. Naomi's letters spread across the table. The revelation that her mother had been murdered for uncovering the stolen trust, coupled with the debunked scandal about her tie to Richard Hawthorne, had left Lila resolute but wary. Victor Crane's threatening email, demanding $5 million to keep Naomi's letter from the press, loomed like a storm. At Hawthorne Estate, the coffee on her desk, its cinnamon scent, and a quiet vow from Elliot Hawthorne steadied her. Today, they would end Victor's schemes. Elliot met her in his office, his eyes reflecting her determination. Ms. Brooks, Victor's out on bail and wants to meet at the cabin again. He claims to have more evidence about Naomi. Lila's chest tightened, but she nodded. We go together. Whatever he's got, we face it. She called Maya, who arrived with Tommy, and their support was unwavering. We're with you, Lila, Maya said, clutching Naomi's letter. Tommy's jaw was set. If Crane's got more lies, we'll shut him down. Elliot drove them to the Crane family cabin, the forest's silence oppressive. Inside, Victor sat at the same wooden table, a gun beside a stack of old letters, his face gaunt with desperation. A USB drive rested in his hand, its contents unknown. You're predictable, Brooks, he sneered, his voice rough. Naomi was, too, coming here to fight my father. Lila's eyes blazed. You said enough last time. Where's this evidence? Victor's gaze flickered, a shadow of guilt crossing his face. These letters. Naomi wrote them for you kids. My father kept them hidden. But there's more. He tapped the USB. Prove my father killed her, and Richard helped cover it up. Elliot stepped forward, his voice cold. You're confessing to protect yourself? Victor's laugh was bitter. I was 12, Hawthorne. I saw my father hit her, saw her fall. I kept quiet because he said it was for us. I hated it, but I stayed silent. The admission hung heavy, Victor's eyes distant, his hands trembling. Lila's heart raced, but she pulled out her phone discreetly. The late afternoon sun bathed the Brooks family farm in a golden haze. the sunflower field swaying as Lila Brooks stood under the old oak tree, its branches heavy with memories of her mother, Naomi. The past weeks had been a whirlwind. Victor Crane's confession, the discovery of Naomi's murder, the debunked scandal of a familial tie to Elliot Hawthorne. Yet, the victory over Victor's fraud felt incomplete, and the weight of Naomi's loss was still raw. At Hawthorne Estate, the cinnamon-scented coffee on Lila's desk, a daily ritual from Elliot, anchored her. Today, she sensed a shift, a quiet promise in the air. Inside Elliot's office, the files of the stolen trust were gone, replaced by legal documents stamped with approval. He'd met with his lawyers all morning, finalizing the funds transfer to restore the Brooks family trust, millions redirected from his accounts to right his father's wrongs. Lila entered, her blazer crisp, her eyes searching. "Ms. Brooks," Elliot said, his voice softer than usual, "it's done. The trust is yours, fully restored. The farm's debt was based on Victor's illegal rates. It was cleared months ago through your work." Lila's breath caught, her fingers tightening around a pen. "Cleared?" she echoed, disbelief mingling with relief. Elliot stood, pulling a familiar contract from his drawer, binding her to a year's work. He tore it in half in one deliberate motion, the pieces fluttering to the desk. "You're free, Lila," he said, using her first name for the first time. "Free to leave, or free to stay. Your choice." His eyes held hers, vulnerable, hopeful, a far cry from the guarded tycoon she'd met. Her heart raced, the weight of the farm's salvation lifting, replaced by a new question. "And if I stay?" she asked softly. Elliot stepped closer, his voice low. "Then you stay, because you want to, because we want to see where this leads. No debt, no obligation, just us." Before she could respond, he reached into his pocket, producing a small velvet box. Inside gleamed Naomi's pearl ring, now reset with a diamond, its simplicity radiant. "Lila Brooks, you've shown me what strength means. Will you marry me?" Tears welled in Lila's eyes, but her smile was steady. She leaned across the desk, kissing him, her answer clear. "Sir." "Yes, Elliot." They laughed, the sound mingling with relief and joy. Maya and Tommy burst into the office, having waited outside, their cheers echoing. "You're all right, Hawthorne," Tommy said, his earlier doubts replaced by a grin. Maya hugged Lila tightly. "Mama would love this," she whispered, tears shining. The moment was theirs, a new beginning carved from pain and truth. That evening, at the farm, Lila gathered with her family, the restored trust documents on the table. Marcus, his eyes clearer than they'd been in weeks, read the legal papers, his voice thick. "You did it, baby girl. Naomi's legacy is safe." Lila squeezed his hand. "We did it, Daddy. All of us." They planned the farm's future. An art gallery in the barn, community markets in the fields. Naomi's vision reborn. The press, once ravenous for scandal, now lauded their story. Hawthorne restores stolen trust, wins heroine's heart. Lila and Elliot met with the lawyers again, detailing the trust's transfer. Funds were allocated to rebuild the farm, support local families, and establish a scholarship in Naomi's name. The process was meticulous. Bank transfers, notarized agreements, and audits to ensure transparency. Lila's business acumen shone, her suggestions streamlining the legalities. Elliot watched her, his admiration deepening. "You're a force," he said, his hand brushing hers, a spark igniting despite the formal setting. Later, Lila drafted a wedding invitation, pausing to write a note for Victor, who is now in prison awaiting trial. "We forgive you," she wrote. "Love is stronger than hate." She mailed it, a gesture of closure inspired by Naomi's letters. In his cell, Victor read the note, his hands trembling. The boy who'd hidden in the cabin's loft, haunted by his father's crime, felt a weight lift. For the first time, he saw a path to peace, however faint. At the farm, Lila sat with Maya and Tommy under the oak, the stars bright above. "You sure about Hawthorne?" Tommy asked, his tone light but probing. Lila touched the pearl ring, and its weight was a connection to Naomi. "I'm sure. He's not the man he was. Neither are we." Maya smiled, sketching the oak in her notebook. "You're building something new, Lila. Mama would be proud." Lila nodded, her heart full, but a quiet unease lingered. Victor's USB drive, mentioned in the cabin, was still missing, its secrets unknown. At the estate, Elliot stood by his window, the town's lights a distant glow. Lila's yes had changed everything. Her love was a redemption he hadn't dared hope for. He poured her coffee for tomorrow, its cinnamon scent a vow to be worthy of her. But Victor's final threat nagged at him, a shadow on their new beginning. As Lila gazed at the stars, the ring glinting on her finger, she whispered, "We're almost there, Mama." The farm stood proud, its future secure, but one last secret waited, poised to test the love they'd fought for. The summer sun cast a warm glow over the Brooks family farm, its fields alive with sunflowers, their golden petals swaying in the breeze. A year had passed since Lila Brooks and Elliot Hawthorne stood together against Victor Crane's schemes, their love forged in the fire of truth and justice. Today, the farm was transformed. Its barn is now an art gallery showcasing local talent, and its fields are hosting a bustling community market. Rows of white chairs lined the lawn with ribbons and sunflowers for a wedding that would seal their journey. In a simple white dress, Lila stood in the farmhouse, Naomi's pearl ring glinting on her finger, a diamond sparkling beside it. Inside, Maya adjusted Lila's veil, her eyes bright. "You look like Mama's dream," she said, her sketchbook filled with drawings of the farm's revival. Now, a college freshman, Tommy, grinned thanks to Naomi's scholarship fund. "Hawthorne's lucky, Lila. You made him human." Marcus, his face softened by healing, held her hands. "I'm so proud, baby girl. Naomi's here, watching." Lila touched a framed photo of her mother, placed on a table with sunflowers, and her heart was complete. "She is, Daddy. This is her day too." Across the farm, Elliot stood under an arch of sunflowers, his tuxedo sharp, but his eyes soft, nerves dancing beneath his calm. The trust restoration, millions transferred through meticulous legal work, had rebuilt the farm, but Lila had rebuilt him. His father's legacy of greed, exposed in the press as Hawthorne's redemption, no longer defined him. Guests murmured, their whispers now of admiration. They turned pain into hope. Lila appeared, walking down the aisle with Marcus, pausing to touch Naomi's photo. Elliot's breath caught, tears welling as he saw her, radiant and unbreakable. The minister's voice rang clear. "We gather to unite two people and celebrate love's triumph over adversity, truth over lies, hope over fear." Lila's vows were steady, her voice carrying over the crowd. "Elliot, you were a stranger who held our fate, but you chose justice, love, and us. You've shown me that strength is in the heart." Elliot's voice wavered, raw with emotion. "Lila, you taught me real power isn't control. It's standing for what's right, beside you. I'll spend my life worthy of you." Their first kiss as husband and wife drew cheers, a warm breeze stirring the sunflowers, as if Naomi blessed them. At the reception, tables overflowed with local produce, laughter echoing under string lights. Maya toasted, her voice strong. Mama said, love finds a way. Lila and Elliot proved it, rebuilding our farm and our family. To love's victory. Glasses clinked, and Elliot pulled Lila to the dance floor, their steps slow, intimate. Your mother would be proud, he whispered, his hand resting on her ring. Lila smiled, touching the pearl. She is. She's in every sunflower, every breath of wind. The crowd faded, and their world was just each other. The farm's transformation was complete. The barn's gallery hosted artists, and its proceeds funded community projects. Elliot's empire, once a tool of conquest, now supported families facing foreclosure, a legacy shift headlined as Hawthorne Brooks' alliance heals Willow Creek. Sober and renewed, Marcus worked the fields, teaching Tommy the land's rhythms. Maya's art adorned the gallery, and her sketches were a tribute to Naomi. The family, once fractured, stood united, their love a mirror of Lila and Elliot's. In a quiet moment, Lila slipped away to the barn, finding a hidden letter tucked in a beam, Naomi's handwriting unmistakable. My darlings, it read, if you've found this, you've won. Love is your strength, your legacy. Keep it alive. Lila clutched it, tears falling, then returned to Elliot, sharing the words. He held her close, the letter a final gift from Naomi, sealing their triumph. Across town, Victor Crane sat in his prison cell, the wedding invitation in his hands. Lila's note. We forgive you. Love is stronger than hate stirred the guilt he'd buried since childhood. He'd seen his father's crime, carried its weight, but her forgiveness cracked his defenses. He smoothed the paper, a faint peace settling within, a redemption he hadn't sought but accepted. As night fell, Lila and Elliot danced under the stars, the farm alive with laughter and light. The sunflowers swayed, their scent carrying Naomi's spirit. Headlines the next day read, Hawthorne Brooks' wedding celebrates healing, hope. The barn stood proud, its secrets now art, its walls whispering love's victory. Lila leaned into Elliot, her voice soft. We did it, for Mama, for us. He kissed her forehead, and we'll keep doing it, together. In that moment, love hadn't just found a way. It had built a legacy that would endure.